Hello. It is Andrine, Jewish American Priestess, and I am coming to you today with another Hebrew reading. This is going to be a little different and interesting. What I'd like to do is use this deck from the Art Oracles. And it's something somebody gave to me a while ago, and I haven't really explored it very much. But each of the cards has an artist on it. So I'm going to shuffle the cards. We're going to choose just 2 cards today, two different artists. And then we're going to do a reading based on about creativity. Let's do a reading about creativity. Hopefully this will help us to discover some inspiration for whatever we're creating in our life right now. So let's pull out 2 cards today from the Art Oracles deck. See who wants to appear for you today. Once we choose the cards, you'll get to click on the timestamp down below, and you'll get your reading. I think I'm going to do a 6 Hebrew reading. Well, it'll be 7 because I'm going to do a center as well. So with the Shield of David spread. So there'll be a lot of information about your creative cycle. I've got one more card. There it is. Okay, who are our people today? We got number 1 is going to be Le Corbusier. And it says, theory makes perfect, practice makes problems. Sign your name in concrete, go big and go home. Le Corbusier. That's the first one. Number 2 is Cindy Sherman. Don't be yourself, be yourselves. Tell the truth in every fiction. Take a good long look in someone else's mirror. All right, so those are our 2 choices today. I'll hold them up so the glare isn't there. Take a look and decide which one of these artists is of interest to you. And we'll read more about them in your readings. Check your timestamps down below, and we'll see you there. All right, for those of you who chose card number 1, Le Corbusier, this is what it says about him and his artistic journey. Young Charles Edouard Jeanneret Gris rebranded himself Le Corbusier, or Corbu, and boasted that his architecture could stave off class revolution. With pioneering use of concrete, Corbu created high-density complexes designed as micro-cities for inhabitants, such as the Radiant City in Marseille, with public facilities integrated among residences. In his lifetime, Corbu realized masterful private villas and churches, but what he proselytized and extensively wrote about was new urbanism. Today, some consider Corbu a genius, others an ideologue dabbling in fascism. Corbu's rebelliousness is underscored by his death, the result of going skinny dipping with a bad heart against his doctor's orders. Okay, and he lived in Switzerland in 1887 through 1965. So that is our inspiration for today. And as I said on the card, it says, theory makes perfect, practice makes problems. Sign your name in concrete, go big and go home. So we're going to put Corbu over here. Set him up on the stones. Keep him visible. And there is our sign that the presence of the divine is here. So we're going to pull out 6 Hebrunes today, and then we're going to pull out a 7th at the end. I'm going to use this set of upcycled tile with the chrome ink. Okay, number 1 is coming down from above. We've got Kuf. Next, we're going to the lower right corner with what is known about our situation, and we have Tzadi. Lower left is going to be what is unknown about our situation. And we have Kaf. In the center lower point, it is what's the root cause of our situation. We have the letter Shin. Upper left will be what is the challenge or fear in our situation. We have the letter Het. And then the upper right point of the star is what is our advice for the situation. And we have the letter Tav. Okay, let's take a look at these, and then we'll find our outcome at the end. So coming down from the top, we have the letter Kuf, and that is what is being sent to us from the heavens, from the divine. And the letter Kuf is the letter that means holy, kadosh. It is the letter that represents the holiness. It is the number 100, which is 10 times 10, 10 being the first letter of the divine name, and 10 times 10 being this ultimate manifestation of divinity, meaning holiness. It is about being designated for service toward the divine. It is also the first letter of the word klipa, which means shells or shards. And so it's this sort of conflict or contradiction between how do we find our holiness while stepping around the sharp parts, the shells of the shattered vessels that contain divinity. So there's a certain amount of struggle or pain or suffering in the world. How do we find holiness amidst those things? It also is the first letter of the word kof, which means monkey. And so it can also speak to our animal nature and how we'd like to just be wild animals in the world. Nothing wrong with that, except for we do have to wrestle with how do we connect with our divine spirit. So interesting in regards to Corbu over here, he had these lofty ideals, but as it said in the reading, some of them were bordering on fascism. So I don't know how that plays out with these lofty ideals, these holy concepts that then also may be dabbling with questionable politics. We have this letter coming down from above. So it's a magical number in that it's 10 times 10. It could be about the 10 commandments and the 10 sefirot. So it's like that 10 restrictions and then the 10 emanations of the divine. So both that spirit and that restriction or constriction of command. It corresponds to the tribe of Naphtali, and Naphtali means my struggle. So again, it has all this conflict in it. It's holiness, it's divinity, it's the service to the divine. It is the shards and the shells and that animal nature as well as holiness. And so that's what's coming down from the top here today, our divine gift, this conflict, my struggle. And what is known about our situation is the letter Tzadi. Tzadi is the letter that begins the word tzaddik. It is that which means one who is righteous, a holy or righteous person. It's the number 90. It comes right before the kuf, and so together they are the beginning and the end of the word tzaddik, which means a righteous one, or tzedek, which means justice. So what we know about the situation is there is divine justice. There is the potential to be a righteous one. And it also is the first letter of the word tzayid, which means hunting or to hunt. And so it's about searching for goodness or holiness within the world. So what we know about our situation is that there is this potential for righteousness, this potential for justice that is coming to us. It is the number 90, and Sarah, the mother of Yitzhak, was 90 years old when he was born. So there's this ultimate manifestation of goodness and gestation. The number 9, which is Tet, it is a letter that begins the word Tov, and it also is a container, like a womb. So it's about gestation and goodness within, and 10 times that is that ultimate manifestation, 90, the age that Sarah was when Yitzhak was born. And Yitzhak has a tzadi in his name, which some people have extrapolated to mean that every child who's born has the ability to become a tzaddik in their life if they work toward goodness. It is the tribe of Asher. And Asher is a reference to the goddess Asherah, in my understanding of it, who is venerated through trees. And right now, we are in the month of Shvat, this is the letter that corresponds to Shvat as well. So what we know right now is we have this potential for righteousness, these trees that are about to wake up in our season of the year in the northern hemisphere where I live. The reverence of Asherah, the goddess who dwells within the trees or is revered by means of the trees, and her whole tribe, Asher. And it has to do with justice. Some say that it is like a bent over nun with a yud on its back, as if humility were carrying the divine along with it, which equals justice. So this is what's known about our situation, that we have righteousness and justice, the potential for righteousness and justice in our situation where we're in conflict, perhaps struggling with trying to figure out how to be in divine service and respect our animal nature. The letter that is in the lower left corner, which is the position of what is unknown about our situation, is Kaf. And Kaf is the palm of a hand or the sole of a foot. It has to do with power, what one can use one's hand for, either to wield power over someone or to give and or receive. So it's about the binary foundation of wealth and poverty, about giving and receiving, about giving appropriately and receiving appropriately, about extending the hand. It is the letter that rules over the sun in the sky, and it corresponds to the patriarch Yitzhak, who we just talked about as the son of Sarah. And Yitzhak was bound hand and foot when he was brought by his father up to the mountain. There's some sort of power here, and that is maybe unseen in our situation. There's something that we are not aware of yet, but there's an exchange of some sort of giving and receiving. Where are we on that continuum between wealth and poverty? How are we able to give appropriately and receive appropriately when necessary? I love that Corbu has his hand raised up here as if he were either wielding power or raising his hand to answer a question, maybe, because that is the unseen part of this equation, this power, this palm of the hand. And Kaf is the number 20 in Gematria. And the number 20 is the ultimate manifestation of the number 2, 2 being the letter bait. It sort of looks like a bait without that little extra yud on the end, the little tail on the end. And the way that plays out is that the kaf can also be seen as a covering, like on the top of a sukkah. There's this material we call skach, and it can't be any higher than 20 cubits high in order for it to be a kosher sukkah. So, but that's like this temporary dwelling place that we build in the fall in order to celebrate the harvest. And it covers over our head and shelters us from the sun in the sky, and provides shade, but we have to be able to see through the roof in order for it to be kosher. So that's our kaf. And coming up from the root here, the root cause of our situation, we have the letter shin. And shin is all about fire. It's the mother letter of fire. And it's also about spirit. and the presence of Shekhinah, and about return to Shuva. Like Shuva means to return. It is the creation element of fire. It rules over the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. And it's about passion. So it corresponds to the head in the body, and that it's about passion. It could be about love. It could be about anger, whatever heat rises up. And wholeness as well, shalom, which often is translated as peace, but it's not just the absence of war. It's actually wholeness, holding all those things in balance. But it's all about fire and heat and passion. And, you know, as an artist, as a creator, one wants to have passion in their work, whatever that looks like. So it's wonderful that we have the root cause of this being ultimate, a passion that's coming up from the bottom. Our challenge in the situation is the letter Chet in the upper left corner. And the letter Chet is the letter that begins the word Chai, which means life. So it's interesting that that's the challenge, that we have the letter Chet, but Chet also begins the word Choshek, which means darkness. So it could be that we have something dark that we're working with, or that there's a challenge in our life to balance the life and darkness. It is the number 8, which corresponds to the infinite. The number 8 on its side looks like an infinity symbol. And so it's about that endlessness, the boundlessness of the infinite. So maybe there's a challenge around infinity right now. It seems to have to do with contracts and covenants as well. 8 is the number of days on which circumcision takes place, and that's a covenant with the divine. And it also looks like a marriage canopy, chuppah, which also begins with chet. So it's about contracts between people, between oneself and the divine, between oneself and one's own self. So there's maybe some challenges around contracts and covenants, maybe some darkness, and the struggle that one has in life. It's also the letter that corresponds to the foundation of speech. So maybe there's some challenges with negotiation of contracts or covenants right now. Something that's going on with speech and coming to agreements. Maybe there's a fear around speaking one's mind or letting one's ideas out into the world. Since we have this controversial artist here who had these interesting new ideas on this card, maybe the challenge is speaking one's ideas for fear that they'll be criticized. And that is the letter that corresponds to the challenge in our situation. And then in the upper right corner of our reading is the letter that corresponds to our advice for the situation at hand. And it's the letter Tav. And the letter Tav is the final letter of the alphabet. So it is about completion. It's about signing one's name to a finished product, coming to the end. So, you know, what I'm hearing when I look at that in conjunction to this reading about creativity, finish your project. It's better sometimes to be done than to be perfect. That we don't have to. Well, this is interesting because it says theory makes perfect here and practice makes problems. So one just has to come to the end and sign it, seal it up, put your stamp on it, put your chop on it, and say, here it is, this is done. That's what I'm getting for the advice here, is that it's about finality, about coming to the end of a thing. And it also corresponds in my reading of it to the patriarch Abraham, because he sealed so many contracts and covenants with others to make peace in the land. So I think our advice here is to finish it. Finish your project. Whatever it is you're working on, just let's get done with it and start on a new thing. And let's pull out one more Hebrew just to get a clear picture about what our final outcome is here for this reading. And we have the letter Nun. And the letter Nun means humble. Ne'aman means humility and humbleness. And here we are coming to the end of our project with humility. It's about loyalty and being faithful, maybe being faithful to oneself and to one's own creative process. And it's the foundation of locomotion, so moving forward slowly and gaining momentum as you go along. It's also the letter that begins the word nes, meaning miracle. So something miraculous perhaps is coming out here for you soon. It is the number 50 in Gematria, and 50 is the ultimate manifestation of 5. And 5, when I think of 5, I'm thinking about the 5 fingers on the hand. So it's about artisanship and artistry, this ultimate manifestation of artistry. So we have a beautiful outcome for anyone who's in the creative process, that you will become the artisan you need to be, that you will be raised up with a miracle if you remain loyal to yourself and faithful to your work, that there will be a beautiful, humble ending to your work. So just going back over what we see here, coming down from the top, we have Kuf, which is telling us to balance our designation for service to the divine with our animal nature and find a way through the struggle, that there's potential for righteousness and justice in this work, that what we don't see is the power that we have at hand, that literally at the palm of our hand, something giving and receiving, an exchange that will bring us power, or that we can use our power. That coming up from the root, we have Shin, meaning fire, that there's some passion that has sparked this entire project. That our challenge here is life and darkness and contracts and covenants, and possibly something to do with speaking, the foundation of speech. That our advice for the situation is to just finish and stamp our signature on it, to be done and move forward with locomotion and humility onto our next project. So for those of you who chose Le Corbusier, this has been your reading. I hope you have a beautiful week ahead, and we will see you here next time. All right, for folks who chose the card for Cindy Sherman, let me read you a little bit about her. There is an urban legend that Cindy Sherman can go unrecognized at her own exhibitions, even though she's surrounded by photographs of, quote, herself, unquote. In sophisticated costume, makeup, and prosthetics, Sherman is the foundation for the wildly different characters, time periods, and stereotypes explored in her most known work, which tends to destabilize expectations of femininity and identity. Sherman shows equal conviction in all of the archetypes she portrays, whether the Hollywood actress, modern suburban family woman, or clown. Her work has been used to train law enforcement personnel in facial recognition in cases of clown impersonation. She's from the United States, and she was born in 1954. Cindy Sherman. Okay, so let's do a reading. I'm going to set her off to the side here. Let's do a reading about our creativity with regards to this artist. Reminding ourselves that it says on the card, don't be yourself, be yourselves. Tell the truth in every fiction and take a good long look in someone else's mirror. So let's put down some Hebrunes and see what it's talking about with regards to our creativity today. First one coming down from above is the Ein Sof. The next Hebrew coming out is the Pei. This one, going in the position of the unknown, is the He. Coming up from the bottom is Mem. Upper left corner is our fears or concerns in our situation. We have the letter Tet. And the upper right corner will be our advice given the current circumstances. And we have the letter Lamed. Okay, and we'll pull out one more at the end here to come to a conclusion. So coming down from above, coming down from the divine, coming down from heaven, we have the Ein Sof, and it's just a blank. It's just a blank. It is the blank. It is the boundlessness, timelessness, void, the tohu vavohu, the primordial chaos from which we come. And I love that with regards to this artist, because she takes her blank canvas of her own face, her own body, and transforms it into whatever she decides she wants to be. And that's what we do. That's what we do as people, where we are born with what we are given, and then we make out of it what we want. But this particular letter, or lack of letter, speaks to the fact that the infinite, that all things are made up from the same matter, the same material, that we have this primordial stuff that the divine used to create all the diversity in the universe. So that's beautiful in regards to this particular reading. It's about all of existence and matter being fashioned from oneness. All time, before time, after time, is eternity, and we all were, are, and will be one. The beingness of all. In the lower right-hand corner, we have the position of what is known about our situation, and we have the letter Pei. This is representative of the divine mouth, speaking the world and all of the universe into existence. It is the word Pei means mouth, and it is about communication, but it's also just about creation, that we have this ability to create through speech, that the divine created all that exists through speech, and that we as humans have been given that gift of speech in order that we may also do that creation. We create as we speak. There is a phrase you may have heard, abracadabra, which means in Hebrew, approximately, I create as I speak. So we have that ability, we have that power, and maybe we have that imperative to create through our speech as well. It's about creating reality with words. It has the binary foundation of grace and ugliness. And I love that also in regards to Cindy Sherman, because she seems to have recaptured the idea of beauty within what is traditionally considered ugliness. So where do you land on that continuum between what you perceive as beautiful and what you perceive as ugly? And how do we use our words in order to bless rather than curse, to create what we'd like to see in the world? In the lower left corner, we have the letter that corresponds to what is unseen in our situation, and we have the letter He. He is the letter that means presence. Hineni, here I am. And so it's about availability for service. Hineni is the phrase that people speak when they hear the call of the divine. When we hear an idea coming to us, artistic idea coming to us, we say, here I am ready to create this. Because creation is an important part of being manifestation of the divine. We we are also compelled to create, whether it be a person or art or just our mark in the world. It is the number 5, so it speaks to artistry and artisanship because we have 5 fingers on our hand. And it is the foundation of sight. So when we're talking about visual arts, at least, it is very, very important, that foundation of sight, being able to see our vision, being able to render it into something that then others can see in the world. It is the letter that shows up twice in the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. So it is 2 letters of the 4-letter tetragrammaton, as if presence is half of divinity. As many artists have said, showing up is the biggest part of the work. I think it was Picasso who said, inspiration strikes, but I have to be working when it does, otherwise I miss it. So I love that presence is such an important factor, and maybe an unseen factor in our art here. We can speak what we want to come into being, but unless we're present, we can't manifest it. The letter in the center at the bottom represents what is our root cause of all of this. And we have the letter Mem. Mem is the mother letter of water. It's about transformation and birth. You can see it looks a little bit like a womb. It is a container that is the belly and the body. It is the creation element of the waters of life, the Mayim Chaim. It's about gestation. It's the number 40, so it speaks to the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. And it's about that process of creating, having maybe the emotions that we need, those watery emotions, the grief that maybe comes up, the flood that can cleanse things and make space, the deep, that deep place that we go to when we find inspiration in our life. So it's about transformation and cleansing and creation through gestation. And so sometimes we're in this period of creation where we're just, it seems like we're doing nothing on the outside, but inside we're gestating a new idea, something new. So this letter being in this position in the reading of the root cause is that we've gestated some idea, and now we're in the midst of creating it. And interestingly, in the upper left corner, we have the letter that corresponds to our challenge or fear, and it is the letter Tet. And Tet is also a container or a womb. It's the number 9, having to do with the 9 months of pregnancy. So it's a vessel, a cup, but it's also the first letter of the word Tov, so which means good. So maybe our fear or our concern or a challenge here is what we are making good. Is it any good? Do we care what the critics think? Do we believe it's good? So I think that's what it's about. It's about this fear or concern that what we're creating maybe isn't good, that maybe it's not good enough. But we have to believe it. We have to believe that there's goodness within what it is we're making, that there's goodness within us that is worth creating about, and wrestle with that fear of criticism while we're in that gestation period, while we're baking whatever it is we're cooking up here. We have to believe there's goodness in it, even if we haven't seen it yet. So that's our fear or concern in the situation. And over here on the upper right, we have the letter in the position of what is our advice for the situation. And we have the letter Lamed, and I love this. Lamed is about heart. It is the first letter of the word Lev, which means heart, and it's reaching up. It's the one letter that reaches above the line in Hebrew. So it's about reaching up with aspiration, the foundation of action in the Sefer Yetzirah. It is about elevation of the heart toward the divine. And it's about education. It's about learning and teaching. So maybe in our situation here, what we need to do is listen to our heart and teach what we know and learn what we can. It's also about digestion and absorption. It corresponds to the intestines in the body, and it looks a little bit like an intestinal tract. in that it comes down from the esophagus and then curves around and then goes out. So it's about being able to receive things in, digest them, extract what is necessary for nourishment, and excrete what isn't. And so I see that as using one's heart to listen and absorb what is necessary and let go what isn't. So our advice in this situation is to lift our hearts, to reach up toward the divine with heart and follow that heart and let go of what isn't serving us in this process right now. It's about hope, it's about belief that what we are doing is worth doing. So that's our advice for the situation. And I'm going to pull out one more letter, place it in the center as the outcome of our reading today. And our outcome here today is the letter Aleph. Beautiful. And the letter Aleph is the number 1. It is about oneness, about being in balance. You can see that there's this slanted line through the center and a yud above and a yud below. The yud that belongs to the divine above and the yud that comes down into the earth below, and this vav between, this straight line as a diagonal across, connecting and separating them. So it's about connection and division. And it's the number 1. So it's that understanding of unity within multiplicity. It is the mother letter of air and breath. It's about the creation element of air and wind and atmosphere in our world. And it speaks to the balancing of divinity and humanity, connecting the divine inspiration with what we have in the world. And I see it as also a connection, like a crossroads, where we make a decision about where we want to go next. In the Paleo Hebrew, it looks like the face of a cow, so it's about cattle and worth as well, like finding the thing that we tend, the art that we're making, finding value within it. And since we have this challenge here about whether something is good, we need to find the goodness and believe the value and the worth in what it is we are making now in the world. This letter is the letter that begins most of the names of the divine, El, Elohim, Adonai, El Elyon, but also begins the word Adam and Adamah, which means earth or mud or human. So as an outcome letter, it's just spectacular in that we have this oneness, this coming together, that's multiplicity within unity, that there is one universe but billions of stars. We have one body but trillions of cells. There is one divinity and trillions of facets of that divinity in the world. And with regards to Cindy Sherman, here's this one person, this one artist with 1,000 faces. And I love that. For those of you who chose this card, Cindy Sherman, and with regards to your own creative journey, we have this blank slate coming down from above, the ability to speak things into creation with our mouths, the necessity to remain present and continue to do the work even when we don't feel inspired, still show up. That we have this gestation period coming up from the bottom, that we've had this period of gestation right before, that this is the root cause of our situation, and that we have a concern about whether things are good or whether they're worth gestating. Our advice is to lift our hearts, to take in what is necessary, to follow the heart, and to release that which is not serving us. And when we do that, it will bring us back to oneness, the multiplicity within unity. And with that, I wish you a wonderful week ahead. I hope this has been at least amusing for you. I found it really interesting to look at these artist cards, and hopefully I'll see you here next time. Shavua Tov.